Sir Robert Buckland. He was the former Justice Secretary with us now. Hello to you, Sir Robert. Thanks for joining us on the programme this morning. Thoughts on these flurry of resignations so far this morning? It's only 7:20.
Yes, and I think, if the writing wasn't on the wall last night, I'm afraid it's very clearly written on the wall this morning. And the Prime Minister, I think, has no choice but to leave office. He now needs to think about the good, not just of the party, but actually of the country. And, to quote him back about him not wanting politicians to talk about themselves, well, now it seems to me the best way to do that is for him to go and for us to get back to the priorities of the people of our country, whether it's cost of living, the threat of war in Europe and indeed war in Europe and all those international issues that are having an effect here at home.
Perhaps you can help Tamara and I out with that question that we were posing to each other, which was all these people having resigned, even if the Prime Minister does go or is forced to go with a vote of no confidence, perhaps as early as next Tuesday because of the 1922 committee rule changes potentially, or these potentials, will those people then be asked to go back into post until we've got a new leader, given that if they don't, we don't have a functioning government and the Prime Minister could still be in number 10 until the autumn?
Well, a very good point, Kay. I think we are in uncharted waters. I think what's crucial is that we have enough people carrying out the functions of government. It would be like a sort of caretaker period where there wouldn't be new policy initiatives, but there's plenty, frankly, for the government to be getting on with. I didn't think this Prime Minister had a problem in terms of the number of initiatives that he's already announced. It's how to deliver them that really matters, and therefore what we need is the minimum necessary to do that. And of course, it's for the Conservative Party to get on with the job of quickly selecting a successor. I think the parliamentary votes could be held before the end of this term, and then if there needs to be a membership ballot, that could be done in August, and we could have a new leader in September. So we might only be talking about a period of 6 weeks or so. But I think it's important that the British Constitution is an unwritten thing. Okay? It's a thing of beauty and wonder, but it's not written down anywhere, and it does depend on all of us to be good team players and to respect convention, not to bring the Queen into any controversy, to be good team players. The Prime Minister's got an opportunity to do that and to show at the end of his premiership that respect for the Constitution and for our system of government that
just let me interrupt you, Sir Robert, if I may. I'm so sorry. We're just hearing that the Science Minister, George Freeman, has also just stepped down. So he has just announced that he cannot work with the Prime Minister, and he has also stepped down. That's 50 MPs, 50 members of government now on the government payroll have stepped down. This is not... What's he going to do?
Well, this is not normal, as you say, and through their resignations, colleagues like George and others, all friends and colleagues of mine, are expressing publicly what I and others have been saying now for the last 24 hours or so. It's increasingly obvious that I'm afraid because of personality issues, because of the lack of trust that now exists, that the Prime Minister cannot go on. I'm desperately sad about it, Kay. We came into office on a one-nation ticket. I believe in one-nation conservatism to my bones, and I wanted this Prime Minister to bring the country together. We dealt with COVID. We had an unprecedented challenge. These were huge and serious challenges, and he's been capable of so much. But no longer. We need fresh leadership, and we need a better leadership in order to deal with the huge challenges that our country faces.
Yeah, he's not going anywhere, though, is he? And he is the Prime Minister. We have to recognise the office of Prime Minister. We have to give it due respect. But he has said that in order to get rid of me, you'll have to bathe your hands in blood. I think that's a Shakespearean reference. He's just not going to go unless he's forced to.
Well, OK, you've put it very well, if I may say so. Respect for the office of Prime Minister. But, that includes the incumbent. The incumbent has to respect the office that they hold. And I can't think of any greater respect for that office than by honouring constitutional norms, by accepting the verdict of the party that he now needs to go, not just for the good of the party, but for the good of our country. We are better than this. He is better than this, I think, at the end of it all. And I hope he's asked asking himself this morning, really, can I now go on with so few colleagues supporting me? And I think he'll find the answers a resounding no. And then actually we can deliver the agenda that I know he believes in, which is one nation, Conservative government, bringing our country together, rising to the challenge of the cost of living and international threats, and being serious about the next few years and getting the job done, to again use his famous quote.
You have been a loyal lieutenant to this Prime Minister for a very long time. I've spoken to you often, and you've been on those media rounds, as we describe them, where the Minister goes out to talk to the public via the television studios in the mornings. What was the tipping point for you? What made you think, I can't support him any longer?
Well, not dissimilar to many other colleagues, I was absolutely prepared to give our elected Prime Minister and our elected leader the benefit of the doubt when it came to some of the issues relating, sadly, to parties and to other issues where, sadly, the truth seems to have been different from the original version of events. But, you know, there's a cumulative effect of this. And I've always felt, Kay, that at some point there would be a last straw moment. And I think, I'm afraid, in the obfuscation and excuse-making that we've seen in the last few days surrounding his former Deputy Chief Whip, it became increasingly clear to me that colleagues were being sent out to say things that just weren't true. You cannot run a government on that basis. The British people expect straightforwardness, integrity and honesty from our leaders. Sometimes things go wrong, and when things go wrong you need to be able to explain that, to man up and explain it. And I saw an absence of that this week, and it's with huge sadness that I've concluded that this Prime Minister can no longer go on.
Well, we're just hearing from number 10 there saying that he's going to carry on with his reshuffle this morning. That needs to go ahead, of course, because of the changes that we've seen over the last couple of days. Just reading from George Freeman's letter, if you'll indulge me, please, Sir Robert, I wondered if you could comment on this. I'm afraid the culmination of your lack of transparency and candour with Parliament and willingness to ask your ministers to mislead Parliament, your removal of key pillars of the ministerial code, your handling of your appointment of a Deputy Chief Whip, who it turns out you knew had a history of sexual abuse allegations, is just too much. This is seriously damaging public trust and respect for government, democracy and the law. And this great party's long tradition at the party of standards, character, conduct, integrity and duty to office and country before partisan self-interest. And still, he goes on with the reshuffle.
Very strong words from George Freeman. I don't disagree with any of them. The Conservative Party is about respect for our Constitution, our rule of law. Margaret Thatcher talked about freedom under the law. It's something that I believe to my heart, and I think every Conservative believes the same. And therefore, when you have somebody who seems to think that their idea of the premiership is them in it, I'm afraid that's not good enough. We as Conservatives, as people who are stewards of our country and our government, should expect and demand more from our leaders. And that's why there's one word, I'm afraid, that he needs to listen to, which is go.
I was flabbergasted yesterday when I was watching the telly at home and I heard that the senior cabinet had gone in to see him and the Chief Whip was there, figuratively, with the whiskey and the revolver. And still he said, no, I'm going nowhere. Did you think the game was up last night?
Well, I thought the game was up much earlier in the day. And frankly, the one person in whose hands this could have been dealt with is the Prime Minister. This could have been so different if there was a proper application to the issues at hand, a real focus on some of the question marks and challenges about the way he does things, the way he runs government. It was up to him to make those changes, to accept that we can all do better. You know, self-improvement is something I, again, very much believe in. We can always do better. We can always improve. And I think that lack of self-awareness almost and a sort of dogged belief that, you know, it doesn't matter how you get there, we'll muddle through, I'm afraid just isn't good enough. The joke's over now and it's time to leave office.
Nadeem Zahawi, the new Chancellor, I spoke to him yesterday on the programme, and he insisted that the Prime Minister had integrity. Do you think he does?
Well, I'm afraid he's displaying that he no longer has that, and it's with huge sadness that I say that, because I think that there are so many qualities about Boris Johnson. I've known him for many years, and I've admired a lot of what he has done. Through COVID, through Brexit, we got things done, and we got a lot done under his leadership, and there are many, many good things he'll be able to point to. But the manner of one's leaving is also very important, and it's how somebody will be judged. And if a leader leaves with good grace, observing constitutional norms and accepting that however high he or she might have come, they only serve at the pleasure of the British people and indeed their party, then I think he will be able to emerge with at least some of his reputation intact. At the moment, he's single-handedly shredding that through every utterance we hear from Number 10 this morning. This is now an unreal situation. To talk about reshuffling the deck, who's going to accept office? It is just absurd, and we need to end this farce now.
You've read my mind. I wanted to ask you, Sir Robert, how he will, because we are entering the end game, however you look at it, the Prime Minister is done. How do you think he will be remembered? Will he be the Prime Minister who just wouldn't leave office until he was dragged out kicking and screaming? Or will he be the Prime Minister who got Brexit done?
Well, look, again, it's in his hands. I think that he wants to be remembered as the Prime Minister who got Brexit done and who stewarded us through the most unprecedented peacetime challenge in our history, the COVID crisis. 3 tumultuous years. It's not about length of time served, it's about what you did in office. And he'll be able to point to a lot of achievements. I was honoured to serve as his Lord Chancellor, getting important criminal justice reforms done, and we've achieved huge change to sentencing in our country, which I believe will make us safer. Lots of things he'll be able to point to with pride. But now is the time to exit the stage and to accept that with great sadness his premiership is over.